Welcome back to the New SEC podcast. I'm Hunter Ziesman here with Randall Ed Jr. It's a huge week in college football. It's rivalry week across the SEC. We got 4 games we want to talk about, one video here. You get a 4 count for 4 of the big games we have this week. Some bigger than others, but all of them are important because these are 2 different fan bases on each side of the ball that don't like each other. They want to beat the other team. We got Kentucky, Louisville. We got Vandy, Tennessee. We got Clemson, South Carolina. And we got Florida State and Florida. Randall, which one do you want to start with?
Yeah, what's fun about these matchups, 3 of the 4 are interconference as well. What I love about the SEC is that a lot of these states have 2 teams in them, at least that are major P4. And so, the one of the matchups that's most interesting, I guess you'd have to say is Vanderbilt, Tennessee. That one's on ESPN. But I think we hit the fans with an appetizer. So let's start off with Kentucky versus Louisville, right? Louisville most recently lost against SMU. At one point was kind of playing themselves to be potentially in that ACC championship race. Louisville's kind of been the topic of discussion because they're one of the bad losses that Miami has. But they're playing a Kentucky team that has won 3 of their last 4, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tale of 2 sides for a little bit. I mean, Louisville, like you said, was sitting super pretty for a playoff shot, kind of blew it, 3-game losing streak. Jeff Brom was like in the job contender conversation for teams like Penn State. I don't know if that impacted the team, but I mean, Louisville can probably hold off on an extension a little bit. It's like pump the brakes. What's happening here? Kentucky in this game, plus 3.5. They were kind of brought back to earth last week against Vanderbilt. You mentioned the 3-game win streak that they had. Cutter Boley really stepping into his own. Vanderbilt brought him back down. Now they look to bounce back here against Louisville.
Yeah, definitely looking to bounce back in this game against Louisville. And Louisville's kind of shown that they can be scored on pretty easily. And outside of this Vanderbilt game where the defense was absolutely demolished, I don't know if it was just Vanderbilt, maybe senior day or, one of the last home games they have. They came to play. People have been talking about what was happening on the field. People have been talking about what happened off the field with someone's mother. Bringing it back to Kentucky, what I like in this game is what they're able to do on the ground. Right now, like Seth McGowan's top 5 in the SEC in rushing yards, and Dante Aldell's also playing a key role in their overall rushing attack. And so I'd be curious to see what they can do against this Louisville defense.
There's room to score. There's absolutely room to score, against a Louisville team. And I think last week against Vanderbilt, what happened was they started a little bit slow. They conservative sets. They, we did our Georgia Tech preview, and I brought this up where if you're kind of playing from the lower spot, like if you're the down team, you're trying to beat a ranked opponent or something like that, you can't play conservative. You got to come out and try to punch them in the mouth. I felt like Kentucky started a little bit conservatively last week. Here, don't make that mistake. Because you can't score against a Louisville team a little bit banged up. I mean, Miller Moss, he missed the SMU game. He's questionable return here. Jeff Brom said he probably will play multiple quarterbacks. Chris Bell out for the game. They might be relying on the run a little bit.
Yeah, and right now, Isaac Brown, I think he's had some NFL type comparisons. Ultimately his game speaks for itself. 782 yards in the season. It's kind of been underwhelming what Miller Moss has brought this season as a transfer from USC. In my opinion, overall they're 7-4. With him as a starter, they're about 7-3. I'm curious to see who they decide to go with at the quarterback position. And if it is Miller Moss, is he going to be ready to face this really tough Kentucky secondary that's proven that they can force turnovers on teams?
Yeah, Deuce Adams was the one who played in the SMU game. Like I said, they're probably going to play multiple quarterbacks as they move across the roster. Unfortunate spot for Louisville where they were almost there and then, dropping off here. I mean, it's a rivalry game. Like I mentioned, kind of some keys here. Louisville, if you're having those issues at the quarterback position, you're missing your leading receiver. How do you get the running game going in such a one-dimensional offense that might appear that way? So that's kind of a key is how you get that going. For Kentucky, it's like I said, don't start slow. Come out, maybe air it out, run something interesting, get these multiple running backs involved in more aggressive sets instead of kind of those conservative, real bunched up sets. So that's kind of what I see here is try to bring some explosiveness.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Kentucky's looking to win this game. They obviously looking to win this game, but they lost last year. Obviously looking to win this game this year.
They're both having some different challenges. Cutter Boley did end up leaving the game with an injury against Vanderbilt. We saw Zach Calzada come in and kind of not do anything. I mean, throw a pick. so he didn't really do.
Still got more money than Garrett though.
He does. That's one thing. I was like calculating how many years I had to work to just get what he got paid to not do nothing this year. But I was thinking about that today. But Kentucky, this could be low scoring just because of some things like that. Kentucky maybe opting to run the ball, Louisville maybe opting to run the ball. I think that's what it's indicative of, not maybe to say that they're poor offenses. Looking at the game, specifically, I do like Kentucky to win. I think that it kind of centers around maybe, team having a little bit to play for. Could this be the seat cool off game for Stoops? They lose this game. I think that seat starts to heat up a little bit entering next season. I don't think they make any moves, but that seat's a little bit warmer, where if they win this game, cools down a little bit more mild. I like Kentucky in this one, 20-13.
Yeah, when I look at this matchup, just knowing what we've seen, we'll see what happens when it comes to Cutter Boley potentially coming back in this game. But I think this is a matchup where it kind of, if Calzada has to be your guy to go, I think this level of competition fits his skill set, right? We obviously saw what he did at Texas A&M. At this point, it feels like a distant memory of what he did at FCS Incarnate Ward. Louisville's a good competitive team, 7-4 overall, 44-4 in the conference, but they're scoreable on. And they faced a red-hot SMU team, an SMU team that I'm pretty confident will get to the ACC championship and probably win it. But I like Kentucky in this game. I do believe that they'll win this one. I think it's a close one. I'm going to say 20-14, but it's on ACC Network. 12 p.m. Central Time. I believe Louisville's on Central Time. So if you're looking for a good game to watch on Saturday, this could be one if you're into ACC and SEC football.
Yeah. Good game. Drop your score predictions for this one. It would be a big win for Kentucky if they can pull this one out. Not too far away, in a state nearby, we got Vandy in Tennessee. Vanderbilt right there on the fringe. We're here recording on Tuesday. The rankings are probably coming on right now as we speak. Vanderbilt's from the outside looking in. They've needed some help to get into the playoffs. Tennessee, one of those teams at the back that's been talked about a little bit as like deserving of their ranking. What have they done? This is an opportunity for Tennessee to prove who they are, get a good ranked win. This is also a good opportunity for Vanderbilt to continue to solidify why maybe they should be sliding in should some shakeup happen in front of them.
Yeah, I feel like both of these teams, and more specifically Tennessee, has kind of been critiqued for their schedule. I think Vanderbilt's kind of getting the benefit of the doubt. They've beaten a ranked Missouri. Missouri's also kind of been in that discussion where they're like, who have you played to be ranked at one point? But we've seen Vanderbilt lose some of their toughest tests, right? Not to be negative. If they win this game and win their bowl game, they'll have their first 10-win season ever. But, you're Vandy, you lose to Texas, you lose to Alabama. You've mostly kind of feasted on the bottom half of the SEC. So Tennessee coming in here, Joey Aguilar, number one in the SEC in passing yards. Tennessee's had a tough go at it with 3 playoff teams, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Alabama. The matchup favors in some capacity Tennessee finally pulling ahead and finally fleshing out what they have to be able to get a key win. But I'd love to get your thoughts on that when you look at the comparative schedules.
There's a singular mismatch in this game that I think is so tremendous. That is the differentiating factor here. And it's the ability for Tennessee to be explosive and move the ball so quickly and effectively against a Vanderbilt defense that sometimes can't keep their feet under them. It is where I see the difference being in this game. Tennessee, like you mentioned, Aguilar moving the ball effectively. Tennessee, third in the nation for plays over 10 yards. They're not nickel and diamond. They're moving the ball. Like, they're stomping down the field. They don't have a super high time of possession. It's because they're scoring very quickly. They have multiple receivers that are essentially wide receiver ones. You got a bunch of them. Yeah. So, Vanderbilt, 122nd in the nation in pass defense, 264 yards allowed per game. I don't really see where Tennessee gets held under 35 because of this mismatch.
Yeah, and we saw most recently Auburn, was at one point, bottom 3 in the SEC in passing yards per game. Obviously with Jackson Arnold, put up 30-plus points on this defense. It's certainly been a liability. We've also seen Vanderbilt, slow down a team like Missouri, despite their with their backup quarterback playing. this is a whole different beast, like you said, with Tennessee. I mean, what Josh Heupel does well is running an offense that passes the football well, and they also run the football well as well, right? You got Bishop or Star Thomas and Bishop back there also. Yeah. So I don't know if the formula for Vanderbilt this season with Pavia has been running clock, explosive plays here or there, but mostly just kind of eating up the clock and dinking and dunking. It'll work probably for the first half. I don't know if that's going to be sustainable for a whole game when this Tennessee team can score at will, and it's proven to score at will this season, even against the Oklahomas and against the Georgias, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great landing spot for a quarterback. I mean, because you're working in an offense that favors these matchups, they're putting them in positions to score a lot of points, to get those highlight reels, and credit to Aguilar too for making those plays. Looking at this game here, Vanderbilt offense. Tennessee defense has also shown, with the different injuries that they've been battling across the DBs, how do they then stop an offense that can attack laterally, can get plays across the middle, two big, tight end, big receiver, receivers who can make plays after the catch. And you're not really going to be able to match up well with them with a linebacker. I do also see the potential for Vanderbilt to score too, because Tennessee has been a let's just outscore kind of team.
Yeah, definitely able to score. I mean, it's for people that are like deep cuts college football. I think the absence of Arian Carter and the absence of a lot of these DBs has played a key role in this passing defense being one of the worst in the SEC. So I could certainly see Vanderbilt being able to score in this game. The three-headed monster with Cedric Alexander, with Diego Pavia, and the rest of their rushing attack have had their way this season. So I don't think that's out of the realm. And I really believe the reason the spread is as close is because it will be a close game with 3.5 point spread for right now, with Tennessee being favored at home.
Yeah, I think the home field is an important part in this game. We saw Tennessee lose at home to Georgia with a missed field goal earlier this year, but it's a tough environment. It's a tough place to play. I've been there in Neyland Stadium watching Alabama play there, and it's a crazy environment. So I think that plays a factor here. If we're looking at this game, it's a battle of possessions. Taking advantage of every time that you have the ball. That's kind of how I see this game going, where it's going to be hard to stop Tennessee from scoring. Can Vanderbilt keep up?
We'll see. Sure. We'll see. I think Vanderbilt's got more to play for in this game.
Oh yeah.
And getting a 9th win in the regular season, potentially 10-win season, being on the outside right now, where there could be chaos that happens. BYU could lose. I don't expect Notre Dame could lose. I mean, Alabama could lose. There's a lot of teams in that top 7 to 13. I mean, even Oregon could lose to Washington. Who knows? Like, there's a
Ole Miss could lose.
Ole Miss could lose, right? That's a possibility. So it's one of those games you can't come in sleepy. You can't come in. If you can make Tennessee one-dimensional and you only have to stop the pass, which is very hard to do. Vanderbilt rushing defense, 6th in the SEC, 105 yards allowed given up. If you could just focus on stopping the pass, you got a better shot. But I think Tennessee's due for one. And I think playing at home is a huge advantage to them in this game.
Yeah, I got them 38-27. I got Tennessee winning here. Vanderbilt hopes they drop back a little bit. Tennessee comes up a little bit. That's how I see it, 11-point game.
Yeah, I'm thinking 40-31. So high scoring here as well. I think that the Tennessee defense hasn't really been super impressive to me this season. So, right now, Vanderbilt's got a good kicker. I think that Tennessee will be able to score at will, but I'm going to say 40-31. And so, the next game, and this is kind of going back in time, that game that we just talked about, 3:30 p.m. Eastern in Tennessee and on ESPN, Clemson in the Palmetto Bowl, traveling to Columbia.
It's a big one here too, because of where these two programs find themselves this year specifically. I mean, this started out the season as probably what some would expect to have been a top 10 matchup, a top 15 matchup. Now they find themselves combined record of 10-12. I don't think that takes anything away from how hard these two teams are about to fight in this game.
This Clemson team, when they're not expected to be good, has proven they can win games. When this matchup last year was another game that Lenore Sellers just put on an absolute masterclass. And there was a safety that's now playing for Seattle that Hunter talked about all the time. That was a game breaker for South Carolina that they don't have right now this season.
Yeah, they're missing some of that defensive power that they had last year, especially in being able to get those turnovers. They've done pretty well at capturing some turnovers this year. Their special teams has been good for South Carolina. The X factor last year was Lenore Sellers. It was his legs. This year, it feels like it's a non-factor, and I don't know why I'm starting to feel that way. I think part of it is the O-line. I don't think there's a Sellers regression. That's where I see kind of like if Clemson can do that, can get pressure on him, then it changes. But if not, then I start seeing that X factor come back and him start being able to run a little bit here.
I agree, and I think he's playing back at home in his crib. The regression to your point has come in that place, and Cade Klubnik's kind of regressed a little bit this year. Where I see him playing well in this game is that South Carolina has really struggled to create quarterback pressure. They've only got 20 sacks in the season. That's 14th in the SEC. That was kind of their thing last year when they had, Kyle Kennard, and obviously they still have their key lineman Dylan Stewart, but they had the two-headed attack last year that really allowed them to create pressure, plus Eamon Worry at safety. Yeah, I don't know if they can get enough pressure on Cade Klubnik on this rushing attack with Adam Randall to be able to potentially win this game.
It's a good call out. And I want to talk a little bit about the Dylan Stewart thing and pressure in general on Cade Klubnik. He had the leg injury against Duke. Minor, but I think it's been, nagging because if you kind of look at that injury, his ability to run's been limited. Only one scramble since. It's not a huge part of his game, but I think if you're South Carolina and you start being able to get some of that pressure, I think some of his mobility and evasion goes away because he's a little bit banged up. I mean, he's fighting through it from what it looks like. But I think that's a huge part of it is if you get that pressure, it's going to get home, I think, more than, how it may have been if he's full health evading.
I agree, right? And you look at the stats for Cade Klubnik, it certainly doesn't reflect that he has been running as much of late. This Clemson defense has some NFL talent on it. You got Terrell there as well from the DB position, and the South Carolina defense is got guys like Vendravius Jacobs and Kilgore who have been able to prove they can make certain stops when they need to. Like I said, this felt like it would be a top 15 matchup with Nick Harbor, with the receiving core, with Bryant Wesco and the guys and Antonio Williams on the South Carolina side or on the Clemson side. Wrapping that up. I mean, final keys for this game for you.
I think here it is. What do you design for Lenore Sellers? I think that's been a part of it. A lot less designed runs for him this season compared to last year. It's been a lot of him having to make those decisions. I think if you design some things for him, keep the ball in his hands. He's your playmaker. Get him moving. You're playing at home. You're playing in Williams-Brice. It's a great place to play. It's a tough environment. It gets rowdy. They want to beat Clemson. I mean, they're not bowl eligible even with a win here, but it doesn't mean anything. You end up having the opportunity to give Clemson their second worst season under Dabo Swinney with a win here. For Clemson, it's stopping the very one-dimensional South Carolina team that hasn't really been able to move the ball that effectively. So it's the same key on both sides. Stop Lenore Sellers, you stop South Carolina. If you're South Carolina, you got to get him going.
Yeah, definitely got to get him going, right? Rachel Faison has kind of been underwhelming this year from a running it back perspective. And, I think with having Rocket Sanders last year allowed them to be able to have more running variability when it comes to using Lenore Sellers. And so it's the last game of the season. I mean, Clemson traveling and playing on the road. I like Clemson in this game personally. I think they win 21-17, but I'd love to hear your prediction.
I got South Carolina 24-19. So okay. I like South Carolina to get it done. I think the home plays a factor in it. I don't know. That's kind of how I see it. I can see this going either way. Like I'm not confident enough to throw money on this game. That's kind of how I feel about these two teams.
2.5 point spread. So, Vegas is definitely thinking this one's going to be pretty close, and 46.5 over under. So last game of the day, you can label it what you want to label it. Florida State traveling to Gainesville to take on Florida. Florida State, from what I've read, has announced that Norvell is safe for this year before this game, right? So no matter how the game plays out, they feel pretty good that he's good enough to return, and they got some stuff there for him. And Florida still on the coaching hunt. Haven't really been brought up as much when it comes to Lane Kiffin, but from terms of the football on the field, 1.5 point favorite in this game. All the home teams are favorites this week for our rivalry showdown, or rivalry week rundown. Over under 51.5. So thoughts on this matchup between Florida and Florida State?
Yeah, I'm riding with the over. One way or another here. Florida right now 3-8. in their defense, they've played some tough teams and some inexcusable losses. They played 3 teams in the top 10, 5 teams in the top 20. The unexcusable losses are like USF at home, the Kentucky game. If you show up in this game, you have a great shot at beating Florida State. Like Florida State right now, especially on the road, is nothing special. They haven't won a road game since 2023 against Florida. That's the last time that they won a game on the road. So that doesn't bode well for the Florida State hopes here. They're just not a good road team. Florida, if you show up, though, it's a tough place to play in the Swamp. We saw Texas lose there this year, even to this team. So,
yeah, and you really just don't know what Florida team's going to show up. You saw Cutter Boley absolutely demolish them, for 3+ touchdowns. Castellanos hasn't been having this super aired out attack performance throughout the season, but he has the number 1 yards wide receiver with Deuce Robinson, transfer from USC. He could play a key factor in this game where they get some momentum on the road, and now it's more of a shootout than Florida, maybe what Florida was preparing for when it comes to the defensive side.
Yeah, I see a shootout here. I do see Jaden Ball being extremely involved. Right now, he's less than 100 yards away from being the school's first 1,000-yard rusher since 2015. So that would be huge for him. I mean, we've talked about him nearly every single time we talked about Florida because of how important he's been to this offense. That Lagway struggling a little bit. So you start leaning a little bit on your running back, who's been kind of a jack of all trades. Great after the catch, great as a running back, especially with some of the injuries and, redshirting opt-outs and things that have happened at the wide receiver position. I see him getting involved here, maybe breaking some things loose on a screen pass, some swing passes there. Florida, I look at Florida fans talking online and they're kind of more concerned about who the quarterback and coach is going to be than this game. And I don't want to see that from a rivalry game. So let's bring it back here. Let's talk about Florida State. But yeah.
There's been a lot of talk around who's going to play at the quarterback position. And we saw DJ Lagway struggle last week against Tennessee, right? So I guess it is a reasonable question to ask me. Who would you go with at the quarterback position in this game?
I would go Lagway. I meant more for the future, I guess, of the program, because I don't see them this being the quarterback play that they want to bring a coach in at a high payroll and roll out a guy who's not performing. I think that you
if
use
it's
that.
Kiffin, he could help resurrect this quarterback position. I mean, you've given him a coach that you've been uneasy on for a season and a half, and now he's being coached by a QB coach, a wide receiver coach.
Yeah, there's been some mechanics issues and things, but like decision making has not been a great thing either. And I know that's coachable, but I don't know. I mean, I think you spend all the money to get someone in like a Kiffin or these coaches, like you have the money to throw to bring in someone a little bit more proven, maybe.
Yeah.
The transfer portal is going to be hot, as it always is.
Definitely. And so it's a fair question. And it's unfortunate that for a lot of Florida fans, you're talking about next year when you have one of your most heated rivals coming into this game, obviously not playing for as much as you'd like to be playing for. But Hunter, final thoughts on this matchup, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, ESPN2. What are you thinking we'll see?
I got Florida in this one. I think just strictly on the fact that Florida State has been terrible on the road. So I'm taking Florida 34-31 in a bit of a shootout.
Yeah, I feel like Florida's played pretty well at home as best they can. Obviously, the USF loss, obviously the Kentucky loss. But I always go back to that Texas win. I'm like, if they can really put it all together, I could see them winning a game. Florida State has really struggled, right? We watched them struggle against NC State. We've watched them struggle against Clemson. I like Florida in this matchup. I'm going to say 21-14. So pretty rock chalk. So I'm going under. I know you're going over.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. So any thoughts on these rivals or this rivalry week in general?
No, I mean, we've got these 4 games here. We talked all the other games of the week as well. So be sure to check out all the other videos we've done for rivalry week. It's a tough one to fit it all in with how many games that we have, this week with some of the out of conference ones taking place too. So, be sure to check all that out. Drop your score predictions for each of these games. I really want to see who gets the closest. And I love, debating in the comments and seeing the back and forth from different fan bases. So be sure to do that. Hit the like button, subscribe button. We love talking college football here.
Love it. Love it. And whether your team's playing for a bowl game, pride, rivalry week is all about winning for your state. Like Hunter said, love to see the different team fan bases coming out and commenting. So show your pride, rep your school, rep your state, and let us know who you think's going to win this game. And so as always, we love doing this. Brandon Ledet Jr., Hunter Ziesman's here. Until next time.